Welcome back to Raw Truth Stories of Female Infidelity. This is a space for real stories written by the women who lived them, sharing their truths about being unfaithful. It's been over a year since my last episode, and honestly, I had every intention of never coming back. But recently, my husband and I took a trip to Tennessee. While we were there, we met up with Dylan, who shared his story on Patreon a few years ago. Connecting with him completely motivated me to get back behind the mic, so I am happy to be here. In fact, Dylan's story was 2 parts, and because his insights were so powerful, I'm streaming both of them on the very next episode for everyone to hear. It's normally a Patreon exclusive, but I want to share it with all of you. Of course, this podcast can't survive without you. I need your stories to keep the show going. We have a brand new, updated website where you could submit your story directly. It's always completely anonymous. You choose the names, you write the details, and your secret is safe. Just head over to rawtruthpodcasts.com. And remember, the site isn't just for women. Men are absolutely welcome to share their side of the story too. If you are a man who went through the pain of finding out your wife or partner was unfaithful, you can submit your experience on the website as well. But for today's episode, we are diving right back in with a highly anticipated follow-up. You might remember Heather from late summer 2024. Her original story left us with a lot of questions, and she recently reached out to me with a major update on where her life, her choices, and her relationships stand today. So let's stop waiting and jump right back into the raw truth and listen to Heather's update. It had been a long time since I last told this story. When the second segment ended, I genuinely believed I was finally strong enough to walk away from Mark for good. But I wasn't. He pulled me back in with the same promises, the same hints of a future together. Every time I thought I was done, he'd reappear, driving by my house, honking, giving the thumbs up, calling from numbers he'd later delete. Sometimes I ignored him. Sometimes I didn't. But somehow, we always reconnected. The cycle went on for months, more on than off. His excuses never changed. He blamed my injury, timing, stress, but deep down, I knew it was all stalling. As Christmas 2024 approached, he told me he was going to Mexico with his wife, Anne, and friends. I was crushed. Again. I told him it was the perfect time to end things, that while he was gone, we shouldn't talk. 17 days, clean break. He messaged me daily from Mexico through WhatsApp, the safe app he used just so there'd be no trace. I didn't respond to a single message. When he returned home, he called repeatedly until I finally picked up. And just like always, we fell right back in. The secrecy, the cycle, the promises. He kept deleting the app every night to hide his tracks, while I kept losing pieces of myself. Eventually, Anne caught on to his WhatsApp usage. He denied everything, but she wasn't stupid. She had checked his phone records. She left the house that night. The next day, he told me he'd been caught and needed to see what she was going to do. I cried. I screamed. I told him I hated him. We stopped talking. Until we didn't. Again. Months passed like this. I knew he was destroying me, but I couldn't stop. It felt like an addiction, like he was vodka to an alcoholic. I knew he'd never fight for me the way I fought for him, but the hope kept me chained. Things escalated in October. One Friday, no school, he had the day off. He wanted to see me at 1 p.m. near his house. We sat in his truck, talking, sharing snacks, small talk. I was just about to leave when John, my husband, came flying into the parking lot. He got out of his truck and went straight to Mark's side, ripped the door open, and punched him. Twice. I threw myself over Mark, telling John he'd have to hit me to hit him again. Mark never told me to move. He never protected me. I protected him. We drove away as Anne came barreling in behind us. Mark tossed his wedding ring into the cup holder and said, "Guess I won't be needing that anymore." He talked about relief, excitement, how he could finally live a life with me, how now the Band-Aid was ripped off and nothing could stop us. We spent the evening planning our future, dinner, laughing, and talking. We got a hotel room. He bought beer, I got White Claws. He repeated over and over, if either of us backed out now, the last 8 years meant nothing. In the morning, Anne left a message on my phone. "Heather, tell my husband to come home. I deserve that." I told Mark we needed to go back and face everything. And the whole drive home, he reassured me that he was choosing me and that he was telling her he wanted a divorce. He dropped me off a block from my house, told me again we had to be strong and that he had my back and that he'd call me soon. I walked into my house where John was waiting. We went for a drive to talk. I told him I was leaving him for Mark, and right then my phone rang. It was Mark. His voice was calm. "She wants to work on our marriage, and I'm going to stay." My blood went cold. Everything inside me shattered. I couldn't speak. And when I finally did, I said, "You are the biggest pussy I have ever met." "Thank you," he replied and hung up. In that moment in the car with my husband, who was crying for me, not our marriage, I realized the depth of what Mark had done to me, how thoroughly he had broken me down, and I knew I needed to save my marriage, not him. I started therapy immediately. The emotional wreckage was unlike anything I'd ever experienced. Mark avoided me completely. I told John everything. I told him the affair felt like an addiction, and I knew it was killing me, but I couldn't stop. Months later, I drove past Mark. He waved. That one simple gesture cracked something open, and I asked him to talk. I needed closure. He sat in my car, handed me a Snickers bar for my birthday, and fed me the same lines. How he still thought about me every day. How he made the wrong choice. I told him exactly what he'd done to me, how he'd used me, how he let me burn to keep himself safe. He asked twice if he could hug me, and I told him no both times. I told him 2 things before I left. Number 1, I no longer had his back, and number 2, I would never forgive him. Then, I told his wife everything, the real version of events. She told me her story too, how he had chosen her, held her, reassured her. How he had never once told her he wanted out. He played us both perfectly for years. After that, Mark started waving again when he'd drive by. Anne never confronted him about it. I finally left a voicemail telling him to stop, that there would be no waving, no friendship, no contact. And he listened. For months, he avoided me entirely. Until recently, when the old pattern started creeping back, a beep, a wave, stopping in front of my house, the same little hooks he'd always used to pull me back in. I confronted him. "What are you doing?" He said, "It's all I've got." But I know exactly who he is. Mark will set anyone on fire to save himself. He doesn't love me. He doesn't love her. He loves control, manipulation, the power of knowing he could have 2 women fighting over him. Every day still hurts. I miss the person I thought he was. I miss the conversations, the version of him he pretended to be. But I know now that man never existed. This affair destroyed me in ways I didn't know were possible. It changed me permanently, but I'm healing. And I can say with clarity now, I dodged a bullet. And for the first time in 8 years, I finally have my life back. That was Heather's update, and I want to thank her for trusting us with her story once again and for being so incredibly vulnerable about where her life has taken her since 2024. Listening to her update, I have to comment on the choices she is facing right now. Heather, if you're listening, you need to continue to be strong. Over time, you've showed that you get pulled back in so easily, and you just can't let that happen anymore. You have to completely cut off all contact. And I know you've tried, and I know it's not easy, especially if he drives by and waves, acting like you're still friends. It really messes with your head. You need to be able to somehow act as though you have no clue who he is anymore. As you know, it's so unhealthy for you, but you can do this. You're a strong woman. You can pull through this. It's so good to be back in your ears, but remember, this show only exists because of you. Whether you're a woman ready to share your own truth or a man who wants to share your side of what it felt like to experience a partner's infidelity, your story matters. Head over to rawtruthpodcasts.com to submit your story completely anonymously. You hold the pen and you choose the names. Don't forget to tune in next time for the previously Patreon exclusive story from Dylan. 2 episodes combined into one. You won't want to miss it. Until next time, thank you for listening. Keep sharing and always remember, no judgment. Goodbye. He talked about relief, excitement. How could he finally live a life who went through the pain of finding out your wife or partner was unfaithful? You can smit it. If you're a man who went through a pain of blah, 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 and she recently reached out to me with a major update on where her life is. Sorry. And I know it's not easily, especially when he drives by her choices and her damn it. The emotional wreckage was like anything I had was shit. For trusting us with her story once again and for being so incredibly vulnerable. Damn! I told him exactly what he'd done to me and how he'd used me and how he let me burn to him. Ugh.